watching, say hello, please.
Yeah,
Hello, hello,
exactly.
hello.
Yeah, I've lost the chat box as well.
Yeah, see, I was looking.
Cat's saying that we might be on the way back. We're back live on Caster.
Uh,
Cat is watching on YouTube, and we're frozen
two.
on YouTube. I know,
Hi, cat.
I know that we froze on Facebook, but I think we might be back on Facebook. Hello, Facebook.
Hello,
I
Facebook.
don't even know if Twitch is up. I probably should have checked that.
Our 2,000 people on Twitch that are watching, we apologize now. I
Exactly.
know
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
looking forward to that. Hello, Germany.
I know we
Like I said,
are up. Yeah. Oh yeah, we should talk about being Russia's #1 podcast, but yeah, we'll save that for
we'll save that for the
later. That's for
part.
another show. Right. I think we're back up and running. Hello, live platforms. Somebody give us a wave to let us know that we're back. I'm pretty sure
Yes.
that we're back. It's saying that YouTube chat's connected up again.
Okay.
I can
Well.
see it live. I can see it on Facebook. So
Okay, we're good.
yeah,
We're back.
let's plod on. Let's pretend nothing happened, and we'll just carry on. And I guess I was starting to ramble anyway about the new release stuff and Topps going public and that. So we'll gloss over that because that's maybe good fodder for next week. And yeah, we'll move on to Project 70. What's been happening in Project 70 land this week?
So it's plodding along. We've had the newest, lowest print right now. So we now have that Jerry Manuel card by Don C, which is, I think it was like 1406 was that there, which of course it wasn't going to be a very popular card, but it was a homage to Jerry Lorenzo, who is Jerry Manuel's son. And he is the guy that does the Fear of God clothing line or brand there. So all I know them is they do very high end uh, hats. I think they were asking 150 or 200 quid for a hat. So out of my budget.
I was gonna
But
say, God, you're a hat guy as well.
yeah, I saw that one time. I think you know what they've had the same four hats on like newera.co.uk. It started off at 250 quid. I think they're down to like 80 quid now. They still haven't sold them. So I just,
Wow. Okay.
it has his logo in the shape of the logo, whatever baseball team it is there. Yeah, I obviously with my stylish my dress sense here. I'm all about the brand names and everything. So, but yeah, so that was on. But the interesting thing is the Dick Allen White Sox card was the second lowest on, and that was off the classic Sports Illustrated one where Dick Allen's juggling the balls while smoking a cigarette in the dugout. Well, obviously there was no cigarette in that one, but still only had about 75 more than that. So uh, try to see. I think Project 70 might be hitting the lows now. I think the interest, well, Easter weekend, and I think you're just kind of people are going, yeah. I pick my artists I like, I even Alex Party. I think he's gonna have a low print run from here on out because he's done Acuna, he's done Trout. Who
Yeah.
else? Who's gonna be bigger than those guys?
So we do have an Ermsey card coming up like the next couple of days. So that I guess that could be the real. That could be a bit of a litmus test to see if the numbers get back up there. It has been a little bit rocky like the last few. Yeah, it's been a big bunch of meh from my side as well. But
It's all been sub 2000s. So you're trying to go up there. So I think we're going to see it kind of average around 2,500 these days. And I mean, we still have 900 cards to go. So,
yeah, exactly. I know, right? Yeah,
so
we
yeah.
laugh about this every week.
So hang in there. Like a couple solid cards today, but nothing spectacular. Nothing that says I must buy. So it is what it is.
It is. Yeah, we shall wait and see. We shall wait and see. So I guess the other, what's rapidly becoming a recurring segment for our news portion, is the ever changing and rapidly evolving world of NFTs. And we have a reason to talk about it again. So Topps, I think maybe just today, earlier on today, have announced that they're doing, on the 20th of April, they're launching the Topps 2021 Topps Series 1 NFT collection. And I did that from my brain. I didn't even read it. I didn't read it out of anything. So yeah, they're dipping their toe in. Well, they already have because they did the Godzilla versus King Kong NFTs, and they've done some Garbage Pail Kids NFTs, which I just found when I was setting up my account to get the baseball ones, hopefully. So yeah, here we go. They mentioned in their presser about going a public company. They were going to be investing heavily in digital. We all assumed that meant NFTs, and yep, here we go. So this looks like it'll be the first of no doubt many. We were kind of joking just before we came on air that it feels a little bit cynical because the NFT cards that you can buy are going to be included in these NFT packs. are just digital versions of the Series 1 cards, which you can already collect on Topps Bunt. So it's just a slightly more tangible version of something you can get for free on Topps Bunt.
Something that's non-tangible.
Something, yeah. So it's fungible. It's not tangible.
Yes.
Oh my god. So yeah, it's interesting. This very much feels like this is them just dipping their toe in the water of it. I think they probably could have gone bigger than this. I think they could just go full bore at it. But if this is them just dipping their toe in to see how the baseball audience is going to react to it, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised, because I think these things are just going to go.
Like I said, I agree. Like I said, I think there's 75,000 packs to go. They're gonna sell. There's no problem. Everyone's got money to spend on these things out there. I think they'll be crap. I'll buy it because it's crap, but the FOMO will be too hard for me to not say no to it. But if it's gonna be, you're gonna have to produce something like NBA Top Shot. And I think that's going to be where the money's going to be at. And you're going to find people buying moments. And that will be the big thing. So
yeah, I think so, yeah. It'll be interesting to see just how digital versions of a physical card will go. I mean, you can put an animated background and stuff on them as much as you want. But I think, the moments thing, I think, is what the real unique selling point of Top Shot is, because it's not just a digital card. It's like an actual event within a game or something like that. And I think obviously with Topps and the Topps Now, I want to call it a franchise, but the Topps Now range, that would seem tailor made to evolve into an NFT product.
Buy the cat card. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that. The cat running across the field, or some streaker running across the field, or something. I don't know. You have, then you own like the NFT moment of that, and that's kind of like a cool thing. Or like a comedy first pitch, like 50. Like I think we joked before in the episode about NFTs. Like if they did an NFT of 50 Cent's first pitch, I'd be all over that, man. That's hilarious.
That's true. That would be something I would do. Yeah, but I think I still think they're dipping toes in, and you're not going to see something until All-Star break. I think they're too far behind to figure out the technology. They're like, here's NFTs, and yes, the moments will come out at some point in time. But like I said, I think All-Star break's probably good enough time to launch it. You can go, look, here's NFTs from the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's the perfect event for it, isn't it? Because it's an event that's based on moments, like monster home runs, and you're more likely to get like hot dog defensive plays and all that kind of thing in the All-Star game than you are on a dreary Monday night and it's Rockies at Phillies or something. I don't know.
There's only one person that wants to watch that game.
Cool. Well, we'll see. Like I said, we'll see. It's interesting. I think these ones are going on April the 20th. I think they're going to disappear, even at $100 for 45 cards in inverted commas. For those of you not on the video feed, I think it's an interesting price point because it's accessible enough. Because $100 is cheaper than just about any box you can buy right now, apart from opening day. Or like I say, you can just go and grind all this stuff on the Bunt app for free. But yeah. I think it's good that they're doing it. Let's see how it goes.
Yes, I was just trying to give John a heads up that we're going to bring him on because we were at 10 minutes.
Winding up, I know.
Yes, we'll chat about this more in depth next time. I guess the next week's is just a news episode, so we'll know more about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially because it'll be the day before that thing goes on. So I think Topps would be a little high. We're trying to have it on 420 day, but.
Jeez, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, we'll have special green variants.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. Let's. I'll start clicking the buttons like a maniac. We'll get John in.
We'll go a bit late for John. Yeah, no problems there. I like the idea of it. Like, I would absolutely love to own a moment from like Shed Long's home run. I'm all about Shed Long's moment. I would buy a Shed Long moment. So.
I'm going to have to do a little bit of. Screwing about, but don't worry about it. Just go.
So we're all apologies about this, John. We the streams went down, so we had a little bit of delay there. So
right. I was beginning to wonder.
Yeah, that's why I did send a message saying like, we are live. We're not bringing you on the show.
with a couple minutes of pure internet outage and just Jason and I panicking and rambling and talking rubbish. So that'll be fun to chop out when we make this into a podcast. But apologies for the slight delay and thank you for staying away. So yeah, John, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for taking the time out to come and join us tonight. Obviously, we can see that. Well, we can't quite see, but you're wearing your Padres outfit tonight.
I am.
Your
Yeah.
Padres jersey.
1984 World Series top. This isn't an original. It's a replica. So, but yeah, I love it. And obviously being white and everything, I've taken special care today not to sort of spill anything on myself.
Did you avoid spaghetti bolognese for dinner on purpose? Did you?
I literally only put it on minutes before joining this broadcast.
It's because it came off the wall. You had to take it down from the wall.
Yeah, that's right.
Make sure it still fits from COVID.
Yeah, I had to take it out of the safe.
So yeah, obviously I'm a massive Padres fan, and as we mentioned in our little news section there, a big Tony Gwynn collector as well. So maybe you could give us a little bit of a background as to how you got into Padres, and more specifically what drove you to collecting Tony Gwynn.
So yes, the Padres, it's because it's the first game I went to. We were on a road trip. I was on a road trip with my wife, Kathy, in California. We landed in San Francisco and drove all the way down the Highway 1 to San Diego. Thoroughly recommend that trip if anyone has the time and the finances to do it. And in San Diego, we were staying in a quite nice hotel, and they had a ticket office in the lobby of the hotel, and they had Padres tickets for sale. And we'd never been to a baseball game, but I quite like baseball. I quite like watching baseball. I used to stay up and watch the game on Channel 5. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh, yes.
They used to show like a midnight game on Channel 5, and it was one of the things to stay up and watch. And I'd done that quite a lot. I used to work in a cinema, so I had quite late nights. So, you'd come home and you'd flick the baseball on a Sunday night. It was pretty cool. So, this was a chance to go to a baseball game. We were going to see the Padres versus the Giants. It was the beginning of October. I think it was 2 games before the end of the season. The Padres had a chance for getting a wild card slot, and I decided that I would follow whoever won that night, and the Padres won. It was quite an interesting game, actually, because Barry Bonds was playing for the Giants, and the steroid scandal had just broken. And he got quite a bit of abuse every time he came out into the outfield. There was some real vitriol thrown at him. But even so, the Giants lost, so I didn't support them. I decided I'd support the Padres, and I've supported them through thin and thin ever since.
There's been some really rough years.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time people say the Who. When you say, they say, "Oh, which team do you support?" And you go, "Oh yeah, the Padres." No.
Yeah, I know. There's a
tumbleweed.
I've been not to jack your interview, but I've been a Padre fan since '82. So my grandparents had their winter house in Yuma, Arizona, for the Padres had spring training. So I used to get stuff from them every year before they moved on there. So yes. So.
Right. Well, that's a good year to start watching the Padres, of course, because that was the year that Tony Gwynn made his debut for them in 1982. So if you went to spring training, you might have seen him at spring training, which would mean you'd have seen him wearing shirt number 53, which is the picture that you see on the Topps rookie card.
Yes.
He's not wearing number 19, and you actually, Jason, were the guy who pointed out to me why, as I'd been sort of struggling to work out why he was in the wrong number, that it was actually a spring training 1982 picture on that famous rookie card. So thanks for that, Jason. I really appreciated that. That was great, and put that on my blog, as if I'd learned that myself. So I did credit you. I did put a credit, say, Jason told me this.
It was an interesting story for people who don't know it. Bill Henderson is the jersey maestro who restores jerseys from all authentic ones there, and somebody that actually had found that jersey and thought it might have been Tony Gwynn's spring training one, and had done the research behind that, and did find out he had to luck out and known Tony Gwynn's 1982 spring training jersey. And I happened to read that story very recently, and then I think we started chatting, and I was like, I've got something for you.
Yeah, it was really helpful. That was the kind of thing. I couldn't find any information about it really anywhere until you pointed me in the direction of that guy's, I think it's his Instagram, where he talked about it. And it was just one of those kind of amazing things of like, oh, at last, and you find a piece of it. He was like, yes, I know what it is now. I don't have to constantly look at this card and let it annoy me. Which is handy, because Topps are reprinting it every year, like multiple times. So like the number of times I've seen that card And it's just like, every time it's like, why is he wearing 53 on the back? It became a bit of an obsession of mine, and thankfully I'm cured now, and the doctor said I'm sane again. So yeah. So how did I get into collecting Tony Gwynn? I kind of got into that a bit accidentally, really. I was collecting Padres cards and buying large lots of Padres cards, and unsurprisingly, Tony Gwynn cards popped up quite a lot in those lots. And then I don't think because I only went to see the Padres in 2004, so I'd never seen them during Tony Gwynn's playing career. And then but I knew who he was, and I knew he was a big deal, and I knew he was sort of historically very important to the franchise. And then in 2014 he died, and suddenly all my sort of social media baseball feeds were full of tributes to Tony Gwynn, and I started reading some of them, and I really sort of appreciated a lot more that he was this fantastic athlete and this fantastic player for the Padres. And so on a whim, I thought, I wonder how many Tony Gwynn cards I've got. And I had quite a few, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I sort of got them all together, and I put them, in a binder, and I started sort of buying more Tony Gwynn cards. And then I had this idea of putting a blog together, and the challenge to try and collect 394 cards, because that's the important number when it comes to Tony Gwynn. And I had this idea, I'm going to do this. I'd been reading a lot of card blogs, and I thought that'd be quite a neat conceit for a blog, And then lockdown happened, and I thought, well, this is the time. If I'm ever going to have a time where I have an excuse to sit inside and scan all my baseball cards and set up a blog, it will be lockdown. And so May the 9th last year, which would have been Tony's 60th birthday, I launched my blog, and that's it's mushroomed from there. I still had a target. I mean, I had 179 cards when I started the blog. And I thought, I wonder how long it'll take me to get to 394 cards.
How long did it take you to get 394?
Not very long, actually, because I'd made contact with. I think you'll know Gawain, who's in a lot of the Facebook groups, and I bought some Tony Gwynn cards of him, and suddenly he sort of messaged me and said, "Oh, I've got a surprise for you." And he'd reached out to one of his contacts and said, could you pull every Tony Gwynn card you've got? And he literally sent me this whopping box of cards. And I went through them and picked out the ones that I didn't have, and ended up with a stack, like, I don't know, this high, and sent the ones back I didn't want as well, which was really kind of him. So it's kind of like a sale or return job thing. And basically I busted that target not long after I started blogging. So then I had the real fun thing of, well, now I'm just going to carry on posting these cards until I run out. And I think it was 255 daily blog posts later, I didn't have any cards left to blog, and I had a week off. It was kind of great, that. But, it wasn't long before new ones started sort of trickling in, and, every so often there's a burst as I sort of come across another little lot of them and everything. So yeah, so it didn't take me long at all. No.
So are you struggling now? Because again, you've gotten 400 plus cards there. And I know Tony Gwynn, you used to have it there. You've got to find some really niche cards now, and that must be the hard part.
I'm still missing a couple of top space cards, actually. Right. I'm still missing the card from 1996 and from 2001, which was his last season thing. And the weird thing especially with the 2001 card, is that I've got like the opening day version and the Chrome version and a re-released version, but I don't have the actual, bog standard base, which I think is kind of how this sort of thing goes. It's sort of par for the course, isn't it, really? So there are still a few easy ones. I mean, the thing is, we don't have that option where you can just very easily go to a card shop and flick through and pick up, 25-cent cards or whatever. You have to sort of buy it, you source them somehow. And actually, a lot of that stuff from the 90s isn't that easy to source in this country. So there's kind of, every time somebody new comes in and says, oh, I'm thinking of selling off my 1990s card collection, I'm on there going, have you got any Tony Gwynn? And it's amazing, actually, what tips up out of that. But there are thousands still to go. I've worked out. I think I've got 5% of the
my
total
gosh! Right.
that have ever been produced. So that's not bad, but could be more.
I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, like I said, that there's definitely some really odd ones. Like I have various cards from Slurpees. I have cards from like beef jerky chewing tobacco that were in there. And like I said, yeah, obviously the base cards are the easy bit there. But yeah, I imagine when you start looking at all the variations, that's going to be hard. Plus, now you see everything come out now, the heritage ones. Are those considered still the cards you need, or is it kind of kind of sticking to what he did in his playing career?
No, I've got quite a few cards that came out. I've got well over 30. I've got nearly 40 cards that were issued in 2020, because obviously there's some Project 2020 cards.
Yes.
You had 20 cards in that. So, and actually, it's quite interesting. So on Trading Card Database, it'll tell you how many cards were released every year, and it goes sort of up from 1982. It goes up to sort of the mid 90s, and then it comes back down, and then there's a little peak round about when he retired, and then randomly there's a little peak round about 2006, and then it kind of like just bottoms out.
That would
and
be
then
Hall
round
of
about
Fame. 2006 would be Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. That didn't really. Well, 2007 actually, would be Hall of Fame. So yeah, maybe around there, but there didn't seem to be that much released around about then, because what was happening in sort of 2005, Don Russ got him to sign 1 million cards, and they bought, well, not 1 million. I don't know how many cards, but lots of different.
It probably
cards,
was
right?
1 million.
Probably was 1 million. Yeah, it was. Don Russ during that sort of just before it became a Panini Zombie brand. And they also cut up everything they could to stick into cards. So that's when you could get bat relics and cap relics and shirt relics and pants relics and shoe relics, and there's like suddenly in 2005 there's this massive spike of Tony Gwynn cards that are available, and then there weren't that many until about 2014, when he died. Then there was some stuff came out in 2015, and then the last couple of years, 2019, 2020, 2021, the number of cards that have been available is just shot up. I mean, I've got 5 already that were released in 2021, and I mean, it's kind of weird when you think, well, he's actually been, he passed away 7 years ago. He'd been retired. He's been retired 21 years. He's been retired now longer than he actually played for, because he played for 20 Major League Baseball seasons. But it's just bizarre. But Topps know that there are people like me who'll buy these cards, so they keep producing them. Really.
Yeah, it's safe to say that he's definitely become a very iconic figure. I mean, and like I say, his rookie cards become one of those kind of all-time classic, iconic baseball cards. It could be. I remember when the 52 Mantle cards started creeping up in value, and sort of started rivaling the T206 Honus Wagner, and they're saying, well, that's this is the card from this next generation, that this is the Holy Grail card. And I mean, it's difficult to argue to say that Gwynn's rookie might end up being that for people of kind of our age in another kind of 15-20 years time, just purely down to the volume that were produced and modern methods of keeping the cards protected and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been interesting to see, like you say, how the card production numbers have increased over the last few years. And I think with it being such an iconic design, and the way that design is, these things are cyclical, and I think just the whole love for the 80s and the Padres colorway as well, I think helped, and the big afro and all that kind of thing. It became this real kind of iconic look. So. But yeah, like you say, it's very serendipitous, because he'd been out the game for so long and obviously not been with us for 2014. That surprised me. It doesn't feel like that long ago that happened. So yeah, but very cool. It's very cool. Like you say, only 5% of all the cards, all the Tony Gwynn cards that's been produced. Yeah, you've picked a difficult era to cover. You've gone through the absolute guts of the junk era. You've got to get yourself.
Well,
through.
you say the junk era, but if you're actually into baseball cards, you'll know this, that the 90s is the pivotal era for the baseball card hobby. I mean, this is my opinion, but at the beginning of the 90s, they were pieces of shoddy cardboard that came packed with gum, and by the end of the 90s, baseball cards some of them were CD-ROMs. And I actually had one of those. And I got it to play. I was amazed. None of the hyperlinks on there worked. But it was quite cute because they had a little thing saying like, "Oh, access this extra information about Tony Gwynn, but you have to turn your modem on first."
Yeah. Oh my god.
And I mean, it's like there's that sort of thing, but. I mean, there was so much that happened in the 90s. So, you had borderless cards, you had relic cards came in, autograph cards came in, Topps patented their chromatizing technology to produce chrome cards. You had foil stuff on there. You had the first parallels. And so much came in. Like I said, and you had this sort of like embrace of technology as well. And I don't think there has been a decade of change within the card world like that ever since. I know that there's some changes going around at the moment with this idea of digital cards and NFTs and all the rest of it, but I don't know if that's going to actually change everything the way everything changed in the 90s. And on it, you look at cards from 1990, 1991, you look at cards from 1999, and they are completely different. And in fact, you can do a very interesting, and I've done this on my blog, you can do a very interesting study. If you look at cards from 1991 and cards from 1992, with the exception of Upper Deck, because Upper Deck caused this, every other, and probably the exception of Score, to be honest, but with the exception of Upper Deck, every other card company, their cards change from 1991 to 1992. And it's the introduction of better card stock, a varnishing effect on the cards, and photos and color on the back, and you see that, and it's Topps, Donruss, Fleer, it's all the same. They all look the same way, the way that they've looked for a decade, and then suddenly that season, boom, completely different.
Yeah, everything changed.
Yeah, everything changed. Yeah. And you see very shortly after that, you see the first photoshopped cards. You see cards where they quite clearly are mucking about. I mean, Fleer in 1995, if you've ever seen Fleer cards from 1995, I mean, that was somebody going, "Well, hey, we can play about with this on a computer," and no putting a hand on their shoulder and saying, "Mate, you've done enough there. You need to stop." It was kind of like they just went crazy on it. And that's the thing. So people say junk wax, but actually there's a huge thing there. I mean, I don't think the 90s as a decade is the decade where change changed. It wasn't this incremental thing anymore. There was suddenly these massive stratospheric jumps in societal change. So you had things like suddenly by the end of the 90s, we had the internet, and it's like that is something that has been transformative as a thing, and it's no wonder that baseball cards transformed as well.
But not only that, you're forgetting you could actually do digital editing since Photoshop, stuff like that. That was the big thing there. So hence why you had the really random stuff there. Plus, there was a combination of that of sublimation into jerseys. So when you saw the crazy jerseys from the 90s like that that was all due to technology change. And that's why you saw everyone like the purple Toronto Raptors jersey, Barney the Raptor. And so that was all technology change. And that was because you could do that now. Before, you literally had to have someone sew on the letters of your jersey.
Right. Yeah, it
now
just wasn't possible, yeah.
So, I mean, it was a huge change there. You're absolutely right. It was 89 Upper Deck was the one that kicked it all off.
Yeah, I refer to it as the Upper Deck asteroid, that it sort of struck the card world. And then, as the dust settled, all the dinosaurs went extinct. It's like the sort of, there's this thing called the KT boundary in paleontology that I talk about on my blog, and there's a very fine layer of deposit all around the world, and below that you find dinosaur fossils, and above that you don't find dinosaur fossils. And I see that's the 91-92 boundary. I call it the UD boundary, the Upper Deck boundary, because the asteroid had hit and it took a couple of years. You find all the fossil cards behind that, with the dodgy stuck card backs and the wax stains and everything else. And then the other side of it, you find the suddenly there's borderless cards, and there's photos on the back, and there's, you know, they've made an effort with the card backs and that sort of thing, and there's a radical change there's a radical shift in what baseball cards look like, and it's all the fault of Upper Deck, because they came in and were suddenly the premium card that everybody wanted. I say the fault. I mean,
they changed the industry. They were definitely, they did that. And then 91, I think that's when Stadium Club, so that was the first high-end card from Topps, came in that way, and everyone else started to follow suit. So because I mean, I never bought any Stadium Club as a kid because it was like $4 a pack. I'm cheap. I want to spend 50 cents on a pack of cards. I don't want to spend $4. And again, this is my whole argument with Graham is like, you know, if I'm spending $20 on a pack of cards, I don't want DJ LeMahieu.
Or Shed Long.
Who does?
I'll take Shed Long for $20.
You're going to have a string of people lining up to sell you Shed Long cards if you're paying £20. Goodness me. Yeah, I mean, we spent, excuse me, I spent the first 5 minutes of the show talking about the perceived value of a $470 box of cards. So times have radically changed. Some would say for the better, some might say for the worse.
It's called prospecting, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is now. It's not collecting when you're buying really expensive boxes in the hope of getting that $1,000 card.
Yeah, it's just chasing.
That's actually prospecting.
Yeah.
But what you've got to watch out for is the people who made the money off the California Gold Rush, for example, were the people who sold the shovels and the picks.
Exactly.
They weren't the people who went digging for gold.
People went digging for gold, yeah.
You know, the people who are going to make the money here are the people who are, you know, it's the grading companies, isn't it? You know, I mean, if you do a little bit of maths on how many cards are getting graded now and how much they're charging for it, I mean, there's some serious coin there, and they're the people. It's like there's people selling the picks and shovels.
Yeah.
You know, so you know that's what you got to look for, is that it's not the prospect. It's one in 100 will get rich off a 400 box.
Yeah. If you believe in the stories coming out from PSA, they've got somewhere approaching I've heard stories varying between 8 and 10 million cards backlog that PSA, so just one grading company, are waiting to grade. That's
and what's that, $20 a time?
Minimum. Yeah. Then they tripled their price to try and stop people sending cards in, and people kept sending cards in. So
you got 10 million cards at $20 a pop. I mean, how much do those little plastic holders cost?
Yeah. My question is, where are they keeping them? I mean, I have trouble storing 5,000 cards. Like, where do you keep 9 million cards? You know.
Again, these are stories. I don't have an end to PSA. This is just what stories.
I mean, if that's what people want, if people want to go and stick their cards into a piece of plastic so they're never actually able to hold them between their fingertips again, then that's entirely on them. And like, you know, fair play. If someone's going to make money off that, someone's going to make money off that. But I do wonder where the appeal of that lies. You know, that's just my personal thing. It's like, well, hey, I've got this great thing. I'm going to send it away and have it encased in amber forever. Okay. You know, that's wonderful. That is, yes. That's like sort of going out with, you know, the girl of your dreams, and then coming home and deciding I'm going to mummify her. It strikes me as weird. I mean, you're a collector. You're collecting these things. You know, they're an intensely physical project. The first thing you want to do is create your own little mini museum and put everything behind plastic. That's not something that I particularly do. I have my cards in binders, and it does mean I can fish them out and move them around, or admire the gum stains on the back, or whatever I choose to do.
I think the burning question now, John, is how many mummified women do you have there?
I have none.
Oh my gosh!
I don't have room with all my baseball cards and everything else. So, you know.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm glad to see that's a far more noble pursuit than mummified women. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we've had some questions come in, John. I hope you don't mind. Mostly aimed around the collection, obviously. So what would you say is your... so one question in 3 parts. So what's your best one that you have at the moment? Is there a Holy Grail card that you're chasing? And is there anything that you're focusing on to pick up this season?
Those are really good questions. So I have lots of cards that I really like, but they're not necessarily particularly valuable in terms of monetary value, but they're cards that I really love. So I could probably I'd probably list them. I'm not a big fan actually of Tony's Topps rookie card, I have to say. We were talking about that a minute ago, because if you look at it, the photo is centered entirely on his arse. The one thing I'd say about Topps as a company is they're incredibly consistent, because they have produced so many cards of Tony Gwynn over the years where you can't actually see his face or the number or his name on the back of his shirt. I don't know how they do it. They must have hired a photographer who was some kind of savant with photography, who just was unable to capture any defining feature of the player he was taking a photo of. But yeah, so I'm not a big fan of that. But I do like his Don Russ rookie card. That's a nice card, and I quite like his Fleer rookie card as well. So that's quite cool. But there are a couple of insert cards that have come out. There was one recently, a couple of years ago, in Allen and Ginter. They did a Star Signs series. Yeah. You've probably seen them, and I actually think that's a really beautiful card. I think it's a really nice piece of art. I think it's the kind of thing that you could easily have as a poster. I think it just looks really, really nice. There was a Fleer tradition card. They did a series of inserts called Grassroots, and there's just something about the way that there's something very aesthetically pleasing about that. The way it's framed. It's got a lot of green on it, but because obviously Grassroots. Yeah. And but it's a really nice card. It looks different, and it's really, really quite nice. And actually, I think the Topps All-Star card from 1985. I think that's an absolutely beautiful card. It's just a great picture of him. He's in the 1984 shirt. He's looking directly at the camera. I think that's a great photo and a great card. So there's some, and they're not expensive. In terms of my own holy grail, I don't really have a holy grail, but I suppose I really do need to get hold of an autograph card before they rocket it beyond all reasonable value.
Yeah, you've preempted another question from Glenn. Glenn was asking that question as well. So,
do I have an autograph card? No, I don't. Have you send me one? That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. Glenn's very accommodating like that at times.
I can't pay you, but I will love you forever. So that's something I've got there's this idea of a trinity of your rookie relic auto, which is quite popular amongst a lot of bloggers. So I've got the rookie cards, I've got the relic cards. So I would like to get an auto at some point. And then what am I chasing now? I don't really know.
See, I thought you were going to say something really obscure, like the 1982 Tony
yes.
Gwynn Hawaiian Islander card that you could only.
Yeah, that would be a Grail card actually. Yeah. The TCMA cards of him in his Islanders uniform. There was also some cards that Fleer released. When did they release them? I don't know, something like 2013, and it's photos of him in his basketball days.
Yes.
And those are really cool cards, and they commemorate his athleticism in another sport, because a lot of people don't realize that about Tony Gwynn. They don't know that he went to college on a basketball scholarship. They don't know that he still holds records for San Diego State University Aztecs basketball team. He had most assists in a season. And actually, the day he was drafted by the Padres, he was also drafted by the San Diego Clippers, as was, on the same day. So not many sportsmen have been drafted by both Major League Baseball and the NBA on the same day. In fact, I don't know if any have. And that's kind of, I think, something about him that you just think, well, actually, it's quite cool that some people have put out some basketball cards. I do own an Upper Deck card of him in a basketball uniform, but I don't know what basketball uniform it is. It's not an Aztecs uniform. If it is, it's not an Aztecs uniform. I should ask you, Jason. You know where shirts come from.
I don't know that.
What is this uniform?
I collected from 82 to 92, and then I just got back into it because of Project 2020. So you're the expert in between all the cards on there.
Okay, I have no idea what uniform this is, and I am wondering if it might be actually a school uniform.
Send me a photo. I'll look it up.
There's a photo that was used by Panini a few years ago, kind of like sort of college style card type thing, but he's got Poly written across him, and because he went to Long Beach Poly High School, so it's a high school photo, or I presume it's a high school photo, or it's a photo of him in his high school jumper. So this basketball uniform might be a high school uniform. I'm not entirely sure.
See, that's pre-Photoshop days. You see, they didn't Photoshop that Clippers jersey on him or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm surprised nobody's done that actually, like a kind of missed opportunities sort of thing.
Yeah.
What would he have looked like as a Clipper?
Yeah, he went to Long Beach Polytech High School. That's where it is.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, look at you with the Google. Right.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was the brains.
Yeah, for those listening on Spotify, Jason was face down, either staring at his crotch or Googling on his phone. I'm going with Googling on his phone.
Let's hope it was Googling.
Yes.
Yeah, I freaking hope so.
No, there's a great story about Tony Gwynn, and there was a recruit coming to play baseball, and Tony Gwynn happened to walk by. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Tony Gwynn, he plays baseball with you." I'm signing up to play. And the coach is like, "Who? Tony who?" He's like, "You don't know Tony Gwynn?" And then literally the baseball coach like ran in the hall and said, "Are you interested in playing baseball?" He's like, "Well, I'm here on a basketball scholarship." But yeah, you're more than welcome, when the season's over. So hence why he only went in the third round of the draft, because no one knew about him, because he only played 10, 15 games in the season.
He wasn't allowed to play the first year he was in college. The basketball coach said, "No, you're here on a basketball scholarship. I'm not letting you go off and play baseball." So he didn't actually play. But yeah, it was Bobby Meacham, I think, who did make the majors. He played high school baseball against Tony Gwynn, and it was him who said to the baseball coach, "Why isn't he on your team?" When he went to San Diego State, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, really. But if who knows, if Bobby Meacham hadn't said, "You have to play, he's the best guy I've ever played against. You've given me a scholarship to come and play baseball here, and he is the best guy I've ever played against." You do wonder what would have happened, really. I guess he would have played for the Clippers. The interesting thing about that with the basketball thing is he was only 5'9", and I always think of basketball players like really. I mean, I'm 5 foot almost 8, right? So he was only an inch taller than me. I'm thinking that can't be right. He can't have been a basketball player being just an inch taller than me. But of course, he was an athlete, and I'm not. So he could jump and.
You got to go with the Fletch reference, 5'9", 6'10" with afro.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with the hair. That's possibly what they thought. They thought he was taller than he actually was, because he had the proper sort of like hair.
Different era of basketball.
There's no way I could grow an afro and pretend to be a basketball player.
Different area. We could do that because you had Spud Webb, who was 5'6". You had Muggsy Bogues, who was 5'3".
I suppose.
So you could get away with that there. I mean,
he did opt for baseball because he thought he would have a longer career in baseball, which was probably true.
He just didn't like Donald Sterling on the Clippers,
Yeah. Well, no, he did. He loved basketball. In fact, this is another weird fact about Tony Gwynn, but his wife Alicia had a recording studio in Indianapolis. And so in the winters, the family used to go all the way from California to Indiana and they used to spend the winter in Indianapolis, and he used to go and watch the Pacers play. And he had a season ticket at the Pacers. And I think some of the people who commented on it, I've read an interesting thing with one of the guys who was involved in the Pacers organization, because he actually got behind they were rooting to try and get a women's NBA team in Indianapolis. And they had to sell a certain number of season tickets beforehand. So the season that Tony Gwynn hit his 3,000th hit, they were coming up to selling their 3,000th season ticket like beforehand. So they got him to go and be the person who bought the 3,000th season ticket for the WNBA franchise, as they were hoping to get. And apparently, and they did this big thing at an Indiana Pacers game, and then he went and sat down in his usual seats, and the people around him said, "We didn't know you played baseball. we didn't know who you were." Because it's not a baseball town. So, you used to go and watch basketball. You used to talk, and he just used to talk about basketball. So they were like, "Oh, this guy knows his basketball. Oh, he's into basketball. Oh, And they're like, "So you play baseball? Okay, that's yeah." So I think that's just great. He was just an anonymous fan. and I don't know much about basketball, but I've never really heard much about the Indiana Pacers, so I don't think they were he wasn't a glory hunter, was he? So
you know what? They had some good teams in the '90s. They were
Yeah.
very very much a rough and tumble team, and they had one of my favorite basketball players on the team was Reggie Miller. So I always had a
well,
soft
yeah,
spot
I mean
for him.
there is that, and I think he did sort of. I think him and he did sort of have conversations with Reggie Miller occasionally. I don't really know too much about that, but the only stuff I've read is reminiscences of people saying like, yeah, no one in the crowd knew who he was. Which must be lovely. I mean, like you go to somewhere like San Diego where everybody knew who he was. I could see why he would want to go somewhere where, actually he could sort of just go and watch basketball, which he loved to watch. That's kind of a really lovely thing about him, I think.
He's just a nice person and all. Like I said, always had a smile on his face, always happy. Yeah, you can't say enough. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Tony Gwynn. So
I was a way to say the same thing. He's not a guy you often hear stories of, like you don't often hear never meet your hero stories about Tony Gwynn. It's like, yeah, pretty much everyone has something kind of lovely to say about him, which is also kind of nice. I think we've mentioned this before. It's like, it's nice when these people you look up to, they're not dicks, so yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, he did have a feud with somebody in the Padres organization in the early 90s. There was it's never been proven exactly who did this, but someone hung an effigy of him in the dugout.
Right, okay.
And they accused him of he was accused of caring more about his batting average than how the team was doing.
Yes.
It's never. I'm not going to say who's generally thought to have been the person. It was blamed on a bat boy, but it seems unlikely.
It almost certainly was not a bat boy.
It almost certainly was not. I mean, you can Google it if you want to find out. Yeah, and he almost left. He almost left the Padres after that. And I thought quite a lot about that, thinking, blimey, imagine if he had gone to another team. Imagine if he'd gone to someone like the Dodgers or somebody, and achieved what he achieved with the Padres in another team. I mean, if he'd ever left and gone to to another team that was perhaps a bit more successful, maybe he would have had a World Series ring. Maybe he would have been MVP. And then, if you think about it another way, think what would have happened to the Padres without Tony Gwynn? Because, he won those batting titles from 93 to 97. The Padres got to the World Series in 98. It was a big, big thing in the city for them. And it kind of cemented San Diego, the Padres as a San Diego franchise. If you look at what's happened to San Diego over the years, they've lost the other big franchises. The Clippers have gone, the Chargers have gone, but the Padres are there, and they're right in this. They've got a new ballpark right in the center of the city, and it's very much they're the San Diego team. There's no real question now that they possibly move, but you do wonder. I think a lot of that was built by Tony Gwynn in the 90s and the team that was built around him, or a team that was built alongside him, particularly with that World Series in 1998. So there's something in that of, that was quite a pivotal moment, that feud in the early 90s. And if he'd been the one who'd left the club, I don't really know what would have happened. To the Padres.
I'm sitting there racking my brain. I'll look at it later at that way. So
off air, we'll talk about it, and I'll tell you.
I'm trying to remember that because again, like growing up in Seattle, like the Mariners sucked, so I was a McGuire and Oakland fan. And it did. I mean, come on. The Mariners suck anyways, but they really sucked back in the 80s.
I was gonna say I'm laughing just because the way you phrased it, because they still suck, man.
No, they suck.
I live on in the 90s, 95 to 2001 is my jam, and nothing happened since then. I can get by on that.
The Yankees have not had the best start to this year, so I'm gonna keep my damn mouth shut.
But it was one of those things. So as I became a better ball player, and I knew I was never going to hit 50 home runs like McGuire, Canseco, or Bonds, because I'm just not that kind of guy. Tony Gwynn became my player, and of course I already had being a Padre fan from 82, 83 when my grandparents were doing my stuff. I was like, okay, so this is an easy transition. So and then when you realize what a master of hitting he was, and he has the 6 grains of pain where he played the whole season on one bat, Can you imagine that these days? Guys break bats swinging too hard these days. They played a whole season on one bat.
Some guys break their shoulders swinging too hard.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So,
we won't mention any shortstops that play for the Padres, you know.
No. Well, you mentioned the one who's in tonight. I mean, Kim. He seems the real deal. I think he's going to come good for them. But yeah, the one who's not in tonight. I mean, what's that about? You swing.
We
just
actually,
to keep your own shoulder. I mean, like, oh my god, that 5 days into like some mammoth 14-year deal or something. Brilliant. Great.
Yeah, we actually had a Tatis related question.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, do you think he's a real deal or is it false hype?
I don't think it's false hype. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's got fantastic potential. I think he's got fantastic hair. I envy him. I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's going to win 8 batting titles. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see him go with the Padres to 2 World Series and maybe come back with a ring, but I don't know if he's going to have a statue outside Petco Park. For precisely the reason that Jason was saying, like Tony Gwynn was a superb hitter of the ball, and people don't realise that his lifetime average was .338, and so that means that 1 in every 3 occasions he was out at bat, he got a hit. Like, every game, that's on average, like once or twice every game he would get a hit. You were more likely to see Tony hit 3 times in a match than you were to see him strike out. And you can't say that about Tatis. I mean, because he's a different type of hitter. He swings, he's aiming for home runs, and that's all very exciting. I mean, Slam Diego last year, I mean, that was great. I was loving that. I bought the T-shirt. Laura Brain did the T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
her there. I've got the T-shirt, and I mean, yeah, that was fantastic. That was the most exciting time to be a part. That week when they were Slam Diego was the most exciting time to be a part of
that 1 week.
And I think, but you know what? We got to the end of the season and we lost. They got to the end of the season and they lost. In the entire, they got swept in the series to the Dodgers in the championship season, and at the end of the year we didn't have a World Series. So, like, well, you know what? I mean. The interesting thing about Tony as a batter is I think he was about 5 years, he's probably about 10 years too early. Because if he'd been at his peak when Moneyball came in about 2001, which was a season of 2002, 2001, I'm not exactly sure. But if he'd been at his peak when Moneyball came in, he would have been the most in-demand player in the league because he could get on base. And he did 1 in every 3 at-bats. So I don't know. Is Tatis the real deal? He's a different player. If he can learn to swing without dislocating his shoulder, if he can have a 14-year career with the Padres, I mean, I'd love that. Will he go for 20 years with the Padres? Possibly. He's still quite young now. But, I don't know if he'll ever get 8 batting titles. I don't
think anyone ever does 8 batting titles again. That's just unheard of.
No. I mean, I don't think he'll get 3,000 hits for the Padres. I don't think he'll finish with a career batting average of .338. I don't think he'll be in the top 20 all-time batters. The only batter to have played since 1960 to be in the top 20. I don't think he will be immortalized in a 9-foot bronze statue outside Petco Park. I just don't see it. But I think he's a great player, and I was kind of gutted that seeing him crumple to the floor because he'd swung too wildly at a pitch. So the interesting question there is, would he do what Tony Gwynn did? So Tony Gwynn, people don't realise this, but Tony Gwynn's batting average for the last 10 seasons of his career was better than the batting average the first 10 seasons of his career. He actually his average career batting average went up in the last 10 years of his career, which is very unusual. And that's because in about 1992, I think it was, he met Ted Williams. And Ted Williams basically took the mick out of his bat, said, that's a toothpick. And so he changed the bat he used. Started using a bigger bat. And a couple of years later, so he won 4 batting titles in the 80s, and then he won 4 batting titles in a row in the 90s after he'd taken this advice and he changed his batting. He's changed his bat, he changed his batting style. So I guess the question is, given that Tatis seems to be injuring himself with his swinging style, would he take a leaf out of Tony Gwynn's book and actually go and talk to someone who knows what they know about hitting and say, what do I need to do to be better at this? He's very, very good, but how can he become exceptional? And if he does that, yeah, he'll be the real deal. He might be I don't know, another Mr. Padre, but
It raises very philosophical questions about where the game of baseball is at the moment, and the apparent fascination with launch angle and exit velocity and all this kind of stuff. And like I say, a player like Tony Gwynn and guys like that, whose sole objective it was to get on base. So like say the Moneyball thing from barely 20 years ago, it seems to have been replaced by every position needs to be a power hitter. Because even in the short time that I've been watching baseball, so since the kind of very late 90s, the early 2000s, just seeing how the game's morphed over that time, to suddenly every position needs to be, it needs to have a power hitter at it, because shortstops it was never considered a power hitting position, even when we first started playing fantasy baseball in like the very early 2000s. You weren't drafting guys for shortstop who were thought, well, this guy could hit 30 and steal 30. We were like, oh yeah, Omar Vizquel, I'll take him. He bats like 280. That's pretty good for a shortstop. So it's very difficult to compare. Like you're not really comparing apples for apples if you're trying to compare Tatis to Gwynn. I don't think it's not a frightfully fair comparison. But as far as being a franchise player for the Padres goes, I think he's got that potential.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is that Gwynn went through that himself. It was an interesting thing, because if you look at baseball cards from the late 90s, they start talking about the number of home runs that Tony hit, and he never hit very many. I mean, that is something. Tatis will probably end up, even if he only plays half the seasons that Tony Gwynn did, he'll probably end up hitting more home runs than Tony Gwynn ever did, because Tony Gwynn never hit many home runs. He hit an awful lot of singles. I mean, 3/4 of the hits he made were singles, something like that. It was like he was good at getting on base. He would sort of get it in the infield. He was never a power hitter, but he was in that era of power hitters like Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire. You mentioned him earlier, Jason. He was in that era of power hitters when people were chasing the season records, and every year it seemed like the season record was going. When people were chasing the all-time records, and he was batting through that, and I think that's one thing that people sort of forget about Tony Gwynn, is he wasn't the center of attention even when he was winning batting titles, shortly after he'd won batting titles, he wasn't the center of attention because everybody was interested in the big home run sort of competition. And I think we got a bit of that now at the moment. I mean, the Slam Diego thing, I think it means that some of the other players aren't on the radar, but I really like the look of Jake Cronenworth, actually. I think he's got a lot of potential as a player.
Yeah, you can see his stock starting to rise already.
Yeah, I mean, he is still young. He's still learning, but he is. I think the big blessing for him is he's got Tatis to take all the hype away. Otherwise, I think there'd be a lot of pressure being placed on him. And of course, the thing that the Padres haven't had for 15 years is 15 years is an absolutely standout pitcher. I think the big story for the Padres this season has been their first ever no-hitter in franchise history. And I don't know, I mean, it's a bit early to tell, but Joe Musgrove, he came from San Diego. He grew up pitching in high school in San Diego. He was kind of signed as a kind of like, why have they signed him kind of thing. I think they felt, we need another arm, we've got our big names, but we need another arm. And then he comes in and pitches a no-hitter. I mean, that kid's never going to buy a drink in San Diego again. I mean, it's just a lovely story. And who knows where that might go. But what a way to start out your San Diego career, to pitch a no-hitter. And I'd quite like to see Slam Diego last year was great. I'd love to see San Diego this year.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's very good.
I like that.
That's
one.
very good. You should
write register that one. Yeah, register that one quick.
Sometimes I stick that one. But I'd love to see that this year. Yeah, let's be San Diego. There was a shutout last night. Adrian Marion. Poor Adrian Marion. He sort of had to leave in the first innings because he was hurt, and then the bullpen came in, and it was a shutout last night. And I don't care if they only win 1-0 or 2-0 every night. I mean, the nil is something that San Diego have really struggled with. So You know, I take it. It's sort of it's a win is a win, and you don't have to have that kind of grand slam every game. Lovely though that is. Lovely though that is. I wouldn't say no to it, but it's just not going to happen.
You should try hanging out in Yankee forums with that attitude, don't you?
Oh,
you
really?
won't get far, Jesus. They're a savage bunch.
Well, I mean, what can I say? You know, San Diego, it is America's greatest city. They wouldn't be allowed to say that if it wasn't true. It's a very friendly place. They have 300 days of sunshine a year. I live in Wales, so I hate them all.
So you get 65 days of sunshine a year. You get the other 65.
I get the other 65. Yeah, that's it. But they just don't know. They just don't know how lucky they are to get 300 days of sunshine a year. But it's a friendly place, and I think people they just like to see exciting baseball, and they just like to see their team win, and that doesn't happen that often. I think when you support a more successful franchise and you're used to bringing home World Series trophies and having big marquee players and breaking the bank every season and whatever else, I can see why the demand of the expectation perhaps would be higher. I could see that, but there's something about the California beach sort of mentality of hey, let's just have some fun.
Graham and I have a mutual friend from San Diego. It's Marty, in case you were wondering which friend I was referring to.
Yeah, I was.
And
Jason has a friend from San Diego.
Yeah,
I do. Yes. No. Graham. We have a lot of stories about Marty around fantasy baseball.
I would never have remembered he was from San Diego. I think in the back of my head I did know that, but I would never. But as soon as you said it, I was like, shit, who's he talking about? So thank you for clarifying.
Yes, and our friend Marty has said the thing about San Diego is if you put a winner on there, they'll support it. But the fact that you have 300 days a year of sun means I'm going to go surfing, I'm going to go to the beaches, and I'm going to do that. So I'm not fussed by baseball. So unless they're winning, San Diego doesn't care.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It is an observed fact that actually the reason nobody goes to watch sports in San Diego is because they're all off playing sports. And in fact, it's something that Ted Williams. I mean, he grew up in San Diego, and it's something he said that someone said to him, "Well, why are you so good?" He said, "Because I can play baseball every single day." So there is something about the South, sort of the SoCal, climate that actually is really good for that kind of athlete. And I mean, it extends to Los Angeles as well. They have some good weather up there. Bit of smog as well, but
you just gotta leave early in the seventh inning so you can get home on time.
yeah, and also take a can of oxygen. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think that actually it is a problem for the franchise that if you're not winning, the crowds don't necessarily turn out. Whereas, and it's not somewhere like a lot of people have heard of the Yankees, for example, Graham, and perhaps support the Yankees overseas, and a lot of people go to New York on holiday, and although San Diego is a popular tourist destination, and rightly so because it's a lovely place, it's not somewhere that people flock to visit, and certainly not flock to go to a ball game. I mean, there is something about Yankee Stadium. I've not actually been to Yankee Stadium, but I would love to go to a ball game there. If only because I'm a big fan of Seinfeld, and I'd like to see. I love the scenes where George Costanza is working for the Yankees, which is some of the funniest baseball-related TV I know. So that's sort of like a thing of I don't think I'd be able to go there without trying to do my Mr. Steinbrenner impression, who isn't Mr. Steinbrenner. Obviously, it's Larry David pretending to be Mr. Steinbrenner, but apparently everybody who knew George Steinbrenner said, "How did you take him off so well?" That's on there. But I think there is that thing of like, well, like I said at the start, people say who, they've never heard of the Padres, they've never heard of, they've heard of San Diego, but they're not even aware of them as a team. So you do find that the UK Padres fans you meet tend to be quite obsessed about them.
And all the new fans that have joined in there. I like the Padres. They're great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's like, really, yes. Where were you when we had like 5 bottom finishes in the National League West, which is the worst division in baseball, and we were the worst of the worst. Where were you? But I can't be too bitter about it because I have to be honest, I wasn't really paying much attention to the
It just meant you got more sleep at night because you weren't watching the games at 3 o'clock in the morning. So.
That's true. And the great thing about when we were crap is that baseball cards were really cheap. And, people would be on the Facebook groups going, oh, I got the Padres in a break. I don't want these cards. Does anyone want them? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, me, thanks. And then sort of Fernando Tatis came along and suddenly it's like, can't get hold of these cards. Like, people aren't throwing them away anymore. People think, hey, who'd like to buy this card? It's like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
You find that happening with every team now, though. I'm afraid that's not mutually exclusive to your Padres, but
well, no, but it has been noticed for the last couple of years that suddenly there's a lot more demand for baseball cards featuring the Padres.
Yeah, it's true. That's certainly true. Yeah,
than previously. But like I said, they were quite the easy pickup. You just wait for all the people who are disappointed with their breaks to try and move on the product, and you'd be like, "Yeah, I'll buy the Padres cards."
Oh, you told me nobody wanted the Justin Upton cards, the BJ Upton cards, and the Padres.
No. Or who else?
Matt Kemp. It was both Uptons and Kemp in the outfield.
Yeah, I quite liked
2013.
Matt Kemp, actually. I didn't mind Matt Kemp. He was quite a good. Yeah, Matt Kemp was actually pretty good for the Padres in a very mediocre. But like I said at the top, I supported the Padres through thin and thin.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's sort of, I was absolutely gutted when they sold Jake. Well, when they transferred Jake Peavy. They traded Jake Peavy. That was a terrible trade. And there's been one or two, reasonable players come through since then, but. In the mid noughties when they were pushing, they did win out a couple of divisional titles. They were getting into the postseason. That was actually quite sort of exciting, but it's never been. Until recently, it's just.
Exactly. You get Trevor Hoffman and Jake Peavy all they had on top, and that was it.
And this is how bad the Padres were. So, like, Trevor Hoffman had set the record for the number of saves, and he wanted to play an extra year, and they wouldn't give him an extra year an extra year contract, and he went off and he signed for somebody else for a couple of years. And it's like, why are you letting this man who is going to be one of the few people wearing a Padres hat in the Hall of Fame? Why are you letting him go off and play for somebody else? It's crazy decision. But
then if you look at the Padres Hall of Fame and the little walk in the outfield, half the guys only played a few seasons for San Diego. It's Randy Johnson, Dave Winfield, who played for the Padres for a couple of years. Ozzie Smith is out there, but then it's Tony Gwynn. Then Ken Caminiti's out there. Gaylord Perry, because he played like one season with the Padres. It's a really sad Hall of Fame, because that's the same for the Mariners too.
The funny thing is with the Hall of Fame is it's got Ted Williams in because he came from San Diego. He never played for him. He played for the Red Sox, and it's like, okay.
But they latched on anything. So obviously number 6 is retired for the Padres. It was Steve Garvey, who played for the Padres for 2 years, but helped them get to the World Series in '84. And the wife and the owner liked that. So,
it's one of those things. When you have so little, when you've only had 2 World Series appearances in your history, anyone who's appeared in one of those World Series is kind of a legend. And obviously, there are 1 or 2 people who they've kind of become more legendary as time has gone on. But the only person who appeared in both those World Series was Tony Gwynn. That just sort of shows his status, which is why I think he could be eclipsed as the greatest ever Padre if somebody was going to do 20 years and set all kinds of new records and beat his records and bring home a World Series ring. I can't see this season's Padres doing that because they have to beat the Dodgers to get to the World Series. And the Dodgers are just a very, very good baseball team.
You never know. Look at the Nationals. They got hot at the right time. That's all it takes.
Yeah, I guess so. And we could kind of hope that something goes horribly wrong, couldn't we, for Los Angeles? Oh, it's terrible. I mean, there's been some sort of thing around Bauer, isn't there? And
Oh yeah, Bauer and his sticky balls.
Yes.
All right, so we got last question here before we wrap it up.
Okay.
You've got £1,000. What are you buying? Are you buying one card, or are you buying a bunch of cards?
You know what? If I had £1,000, I would probably I've already gone on a trip to San Diego actually, and
I like this.
My exotic, being a fan from Wales, I'd start speaking Welsh to everybody, and I'd put the accent on obviously for them, and pretend to be and just hope that I got given loads of sort of free stuff and free cards. So just basically do what I do at the moment, which is try and beg, borrow, and steal as many free Tony Gwynn cards from my collection as I can, and hope that people are feeling generous. I think that's what I do. Or I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably pull the trigger on an autograph card and go for a really, really nice one. And it would probably cost £1,000 because I'd have to use eBay's global shipping service.
Yeah, it's like minimum £20 for anything, right?
Yeah, it's like here you go. You have to sign over your firstborn at the on delivery. Oh, okay, yeah, I want that card.
Yeah, that's funny. We're planning an episode about international logistics, and yeah, that'll be on the list, funnily enough. But coming soon in a future episode.
I mean, I work it out because if you buy a lot of cards, if you buy a lot, not a lot of cards as in lots of cards, but if you buy like a job lot of cards, and I factor in kind of like if I'm buying 30 cards or 40 cards, and I need most of them, it's X amount postage and the global shipping thing, and I just put it all in, and I still work out. I add it all up, and I work out what the average cost of the card is. And if it's less than $2 and they're really nice cards, I think that's worth doing. And if it's more than 50 cents and they're sort of cruddy based cards and I've got most of them, then I don't bother.
Yeah.
That's kind of what to do. So yeah, I could afford eBay global shipping on an autograph card.
Yeah, you take £1,000 and spend it on eBay global shipping. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It would go in some way, wouldn't it? Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the autograph card is a noble choice for you.
But actually, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to San Diego. I'd like to fly to San Diego, and I'd like to go to the brewery that has released the special Tony Gwynn commemorative beer, the .394 beer, and I'd like to buy myself a case of that. And see how much I could smuggle back through customs.
I've looked for that.
I don't know how I store those, but they go in my collection.
Alesmith is the brewery that does that.
That's the one, yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out how to get some myself.
Yeah, they actually have a little exhibit in the brewery. So when I go on my next pilgrimage to San Diego, I'll that's the reason we're going to the brewery is to see the exhibit.
Of course.
Of course. But then it would be rude not to buy some of the beer, right?
You know what? I'm going to ask Marty next time he's going home to get some beer. Tell him this is dude, you got to get me beer.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a guy I know online, I know through an online community who he used to live in San Diego, and he says he kept saying, "Oh, it's really good beer, you should try it." And I'm like, do you know where I live?
I'll pop right over. Right?
Yeah, what are you doing to me? Because that's such a shame because it's a really nice beer. Like, I'm going to kill you, but I really am.
There you go. You can take Jason's £1,000 and buy yourself a beer.
Personally, I think you should talk to the people at Tiny Rebels and work out a trade out.
Yeah. I mean, Tiny Rebel. I mean, that's. I could go talk to them. There's a few others around here actually. We've got quite a few microbreweries now. And maybe one of them would like to do like a sort of, maybe they'd like to send me as their representative to California. Oh, that's a genius idea.
Oh, that's it.
There we go.
Well, there you go. We're Russia's #1 baseball card related webcast and podcast now. So you're pitching to the right audience.
Yeah,
it's amazing when you see Russia pop up on your podcast statistics when you're checking them through the week. It's quite interesting.
Not only that, we're the 4th overall all time in Germany.
4th all time in Germany.
So whoever's in Germany watching our show, hey, reach out and say hello. I'm serious. I want to know who you are.
Yeah, guten Tag. Yeah, we're not sellouts at all. Brilliant, John. It's been really great having you on. Thanks so much for taking the time and talking to us about your travels and your collection and stuff. It's been really great. I've really enjoyed it. I've had lots of questions in as well. I think we've got through the vast majority of them. I'm sure if people didn't get their question answered, they know where you are. They'll reach out to you. We've had
Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
yeah, we've had your blog up on the stream all night. For those listening,
bro.
it's .394, so that's POINT, and then 394.blogspot.com. It'll be linked in the podcast description as well, so you can get it from there. Go check out John's blog and read about his 5% of Tony Gwynn cards, which will hopefully continue to grow. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Jason, as always, it's been a pleasure. Next week, I think it's just back to the two of us, chuckleheads. We'll be covering. Yeah, we'll be talking nonsense next week for an hour. We'll probably have more on Top Score and Public News and some more on their NFT. It'll be the night before the NFT drops, so that's probably our conversation already laid out for next week. So yeah, once again, thanks very much for being with us, John. If you want to stay and hang out after. Don't feel the need to immediately disconnect. We're just going to get the stream shut down. But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for watching along, sending in the questions. We'll be back, like I say, next Monday night, live at 9 p.m. UK time. And this episode will be available as a podcast from Wednesday at 9 p.m. UK. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, you should be able to find us. And yeah, thanks very much, everybody. Take care, stay safe. If you're in England, I believe the pub's open in about an hour and a half, so behave yourself. In Scotland, they're not open yet. Behave yourself. We want our pubs open too, so don't ruin it for the rest of us.
No bottling people. Stay away from bottling people. Exactly.
Can you imagine what the streets are going to be like at like 2 p.m. tomorrow? It's just going to be littered with drunk
people. Chaos.
Oh my God.
It's going to be like a bunch of like 18 and 25-year-olds
drunk and passed down. It's going to be like all of England is going to be like a Club 1830 Ibiza trip from like the 90s. It's going to be grim.
So yeah, it's so gonna be like that too. We're totally just live video of this.
Yeah, we'll just be laughing on Facebook as we get put into stage 4 lockdown again. So yeah, stay safe, everybody. Enjoy your beer responsibly. John, thanks again. Yeah, take care. We'll see you next week.
My dad's make it hurt. My dad's make it hurt.